Okay, so we'll go ahead and log into the system. Okay, let me know if anything's too small, and I can zoom in a little bit further.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the first screen you see when you log into the system. This is what we call the inventory item master list. From here, you can see all the different warehouses you have in the system, and you can look at the different inventories and the different items in each one. So for example, as we switch warehouses here, you can see we have different parts lists for different warehouses. Some items are turned on in some places, not in other places. And each warehouse has their individual stocking levels, and we can also view a lot of customers will use in terms of day-to-day operations, looking at at least this is the home screen that you navigate to different places from. So I'll just go over this in a little quick detail. As you noticed up here, we can change the warehouse easily by just clicking on this box. Moving across, we have the status field. And on different screens, this will mean different things. For orders, you can look at what's open. And what attributes we'd like to search and apply.
So currently, each of the bicycles that we sell, the model and the size is embedded in the PC code. But they also have serial numbers on our boxes that is unique to each bicycle. So just so I understand, if we wanted to track, say an order going out, being shipped out, if we could scan the serial number, could that tie back into what's in inventory? In other words, if we scan the serial number coming in on a container, it will show up in here?
Yes, as long as you track it through the process. So when you receive the inventory into your system, as long as you enter in the serial number there, you can again track that as it moves throughout your warehouse and as you ship the product eventually. Our order screens and our receiving screen and our stock consumption screen, they all have a serial number field, so you can specify exactly which serial number you're attributing to which order. And if you ever need to track something down or find out where it came from, you can easily look at the audit trail and the logs to figure that out.
Okay. Yeah, we don't utilize it right now, but that's because we don't really have a way of tracking it. So if we did, we might come up with some ideas.
You can also track lot numbers as well. So if you're receiving, you know, a box from lot XYZ or something like that, you could track, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
and other
Okay.
categories like that.
All right, thanks.
And moving down the screen, we have the pricing levels and the default prices and costs as well here. These can be set up in different ways. So, for example, if you have different customer groups that get different pricing levels, you can specify them here. If you don't specify anything, we just use the default price listed. You can also specify packaging and units of measure. So if you're measuring by the case, if you're measuring by the box or whatever, this is a user manageable list, and you can set up those definitions. Moving down, we also have a certifications and inspections area. Not many clients use this, but this is something that allows you to, schedule inspections and track the inspections of the product. Doesn't normally come into play with most clients. It's primarily for managing tools and equipment and things like that. And we'll jump back out to the item master list. While I'm on this screen, I'll actually, a few other features of this screen. This is similar to every editable list in our system. So from here, you can click the Add New button if you'd like to add a new part. This page is actually special in that you can also, hit back twice. You can also, print labels right from the screen if there are any in the system. You can also rename the part as well. And there's also a copy to new functionality if you'd like to duplicate the part to possibly a new item number with a slightly different description or something like that. You can do that from here as well.
Okay, the labels actually are of great interest to us. We are in the process of trying to determine if we can work with FedEx to have our barcodes on the FedEx labels directly.
Okay.
And I just wondered, when you have that print label capability, would you have the ability to print those right on the barcode, the barcodes labels on a FedEx
FedEx
label, for
stock,
example?
or I think we've done it in the past. I don't know the specifics. We do a lot of custom labels though. So as long as we know like the printer information and things like that, I think it'd be something we could do. But for example, here this is a basic 2x1 from our base system. It just has the description and the item number right here. Pretty straightforward and basic tag. We also support a number of different standard sizes: 2x1, 2x4, 2x3. Different common label stock sizes as well. And we do customize these barcodes. So, for example, if you wanted something with a serial number on it or anything like that, we could additionally do that.
Okay.
And these are just the base ones. So, as I said, this is something we customize for a lot of clients in terms of what size you might need, what label stock you might have, what printers you have. Moving across the screen, if you click on the item ID on this screen here, you can look at what warehouses the stock is turned on for. This is useful if you have multiple locations and maybe not every single one should have access to the same parts list or should have access to the same materials. You can easily filter that down through here and specify what's allowed where. Moving across, we have on the top of the screen here, another feature is you can click on the column headings here on any of these report screens to filter by that column. You can do this with multiple columns at a single time and get multiple different filters set up here. So that's something that's useful in terms of utilizing and searching through the report. We also have an image capability. So if you'd like to link images, and unfortunately a lot of these are missing. These are playing in our test system here. But essentially, the images capability here is designed so that you can link multiple images to a single item. You can link an unlimited number of images. So for example, if you wanted to track the condition of stock when it came in, or possibly something came in damaged and you wanted to record the pictures to the system, or possibly you had PDF documents of specifications or manuals or stuff like that, you can upload that into the system here and track that along with the item numbers. Next up is the history icon here. This will take you in and show you all the history for that particular part. You'll notice here in our demo system we don't have a ton of history, but I have some clients that have millions of records in their audit trails here. Essentially, every stock transaction, whether it's a receipt, a move, a transit, or a stock consumption, or anything on orders, it'll show up right here, and it'll tell you exactly what time the transaction occurred at, who processed the transaction, what the reference number was, and what was the reason for the adjustment. So this audit trail is useful in tracking down, if you ever lose materials, if you're ever having trouble finding out what happened to them, you can easily come here and try to figure that out and find where the disconnect was, if anything ever occurred. And last thing on this particular screen is the blue links on the right here. You can click on any of these to view the specific stock records. This will take you into our locate and move screen. So here we can see we have one lot of 100 units for this particular item. It'll also give you the exact location in the warehouse, the exact serial numbers, and any other attributes such as the expiration dates or any special remarks. And that's available for pretty much anywhere you see those in-stock links. Additionally, we also support the on-order, on-hold, and committed columns as well. So those will link you to whatever the purchase order number is, if it's the on-order column, or whatever the shipping order number is if it's in the committed column. That's a quick overview of this screen. Any other questions? Anything you wanted to go over?
I don't think so.
Okay, I think that's the most complicated screen. It normally speeds up from here. So in the menus up here at the top, obviously we have things organized in different ways. On the left here, these are your basic lists of, locations, warehouses, bill of materials, and things like that. Second column here is for all your stock transactions. So locate and move, you can use that utility to find stock in the warehouse, mark it, and move it to someplace else. So for example here, I need to actually pick a warehouse. For example here, we can move this stock to damaged goods if we'd like to. And then you'll see that stock is moved to that location. This is a quick way to process these types of transactions. You can also do transit slips to move stock between warehouses. Receive stock works in a similar manner, but instead we have a grid layout here. So on the left side here, we can select an item number and select those items that are low on stock. Specify a number of units we'd like to receive. And we can also specify a reason code. For example, I'll just use physical inventory for this particular one. But you could also specify if you had different codes for, found stock, lost stock, repaired, things like that. You can put them in there. Here is where you could also specify a serial number if you'd like to track that, as well as a reference number if you had a specific number referring to this order or transaction.
So if we had a barcode scanner that could, like say a 2D scanner that can visualize that serial number or take that in, would that be something that could autofill?
Yes. Give me one moment to find my...
I guess one of my questions is if it's, each... so for instance, we have a bicycle model called an Urban, and we have 3 sizes. And if we were taking it in, so each box has the UPC code on it that designates, the model and size, and it also has a separate serial number on it. If we were to scan that as it comes in, would it be auto-filling in a category, in this sort of a screen?
Yes. So this particular screen does support scanning. So for example, here's a few barcodes I have on my sheet right here in front of me. So you can see I'm just scanning a few different item IDs from our system. Now these particular item IDs are not turned on for this warehouse. They're turned on for, I think, the Acme Medical Warehouse. But it's just a quick example. You can just scan and it'll move right down the screen. You'll also notice it will duplicate the location as well as you go down the screen, and as well as the reference number. Similarly, you can do the same thing in the serial column as well. So it's a quick way.
So those are coming in because you're scanning? You're scanning those serial numbers? Yep.
Yes,
Actually,
I'm
I
scanning
just
these right off a sheet on my desk here. We actually have an inventory barcode catalog, and I'm just using that here to scan these different items in.
Okay, great.
So yes, that works with pretty much any scanner. You can connect this to a computer. We also have a mobile application you can use as well to do similar scanning. And you can do that with barcodes, as we were talking about, or serial numbers. So let me actually clear out these lines here since these parts aren't turned on here. I can actually probably leave them there. They'll just yell at me. Yep. So clear this stuff out. I gotta make an easier way to clear that out. Okay, so we can click Save here. And again, I'll just get rid of the serial numbers since these aren't serialized parts. You'll notice we have the autofill option. So you can choose whether or not to copy down the location settings and the references as you go down the screen. It's just a little toggleable option right there at the top. At this point, we can click Save, and we're ready to receive the stock. So once you click Receive, it'll run a couple validation routines just to make sure if it's a serialized part that you actually gave a serial number, or if it's not a serialized part, you didn't give a serial number, and just things like that. From here, we can print labels for the product, and I believe these are a slightly different format label by default, so this might give you another idea of different formats we can do. This is a bit more complex of a barcode label. This is designed for primarily for like boxes and possibly pallets of larger goods. But again, I'm sure we can adapt something to your specific use case. And we can go back to the item master list, and we can see that stock levels changed a bit. I actually don't remember the specific items we used here, but I think it was the iPod C BFP item here, and possibly this one, but should have paid attention to that. Additionally, if you go into Locate Move, we can now see that we do have some additional stock in here that's been received recently. Similarly, the stock consumption screen works in the same way. You can scan into these fields, or you can select them from the list. And I'll just pick the same part because we do have a little bit of stock of that. And as you move across, you can select the different fields or attributes, or you can scan them off of a label. With the issuing side of things, we do support different things like first in, first out. So for example, if you didn't select the location yourself, you can use the load all capability, which will search the warehouse and look at the times that things were received and follow first in, first out rules in order to put them on the screen here. Make sure I save. From here, you can also print a pick list. It's just a simple pick list, shows you what the item is, what the location is. You can print out, give to warehouse guys in order to go, process the transaction. Additionally, they can process similar transactions right on the mobile device as well. And I'll just click Finish Issue. And we do have an issue slip as well, which tracks what's gone out of the system. And I'll give you the adjustment number as well. And if we look in the audit trail report, if we look in the audit trail report, we can see the different transactions we've been processing. The move transaction a few minutes ago, the receipt transaction, and the issue transaction. And as I said, it'll tell you the exact date and time of the transaction.
Now, just so I understand, so what you guys are calling issue, is that showing it when it's shipped?
That's stock reduction. It's similar to the shipping process. But generally, when I do the demos, I like to show how to do the manual adjustments before we look at the order processing. So,
okay.
For example, here, here's a purchase order, for example. I think this one's open. Yes, it is. So with the orders, the way it works is very similar. We have an order header, which defines what supplier or customer the order came from. For purchase orders, we select which warehouse we're shipping it to and invoicing it to. There's also a few different options down the screen for approval, buyers, payment terms, things like that. but many of these are optional and they're not required. The system is quite customizable, so if you're not using a lot of those fields, we'll just come into the customize screen here and we can turn them off for you by clicking some of these checkboxes on the right side. So it does look a little complicated at first glance, but we generally can turn off a lot of this and simplify it for you depending on what you need. On the line item screens of the orders, you can add items by clicking the Add Line button. And on the screen here, you can adjust the number of units, the unit price, units of measure, things like that. The screen will do conversions. So, for example, if I change the purchase order units to 4, it'll automatically update the units to 40 based on my unit of measure. So the unit of measure can be used to convert from whatever quantity you're ordering into whatever quantity you track in your system. So some clients track things by the case. Their vendor might track it by the individual unit, or vice versa. So you can use this to do conversion. Additionally, the unit price is automatically filled out from the item master record. However, you can override it on an individual order if need be. And the unit price is tracked with that piece of stock throughout the system. So we know what value it came in at, what value it went out of the system at. There's also a notes page if you need to add any additional details to the transaction. But I think you can just receive this purchase order here. And once you click the receive button, it'll take you back to that same inventory receive screen we were on earlier. It'll automatically fill out some of the attributes based on what you had selected on the purchase order screen or the shipping order screen. However, you can again update them. For example, if you're issuing and the stock isn't going into that location, or maybe you're receiving and now you need to move it into A1 instead of receiving dock, or vice versa. So at this point, I think we're good to go. We can just hit receive. And now it'll give you a prompt if you'd like to complete the purchase order or not. This is useful if you're doing a partial receipt, or possibly they were under or over on the numbers. You need to leave the order open while that's rectified. You can always go back. There is a purchase order corrections utility. So if you receive too many, or you realize later that they missed out on something on the shipment, you can always go back and adjust it. So for example, we have the returns and corrections buttons available now because we've started processing this particular order. So returns will list all the items. Similarly, corrections will do the same thing. And shipping orders are very similar. Both these are open. Cool. Again, we have the shipping order header where you can specify which warehouse you're shipping it out of. Moving down the screen, you can select the type of order. So for example, if you're doing drop shipments directly from a vendor, or this is a quote and you don't want this to be processed yet, you can specify different options like that. For now, we'll just leave that at order. You can also select the shipping and billing addresses. Our system allows these to be linked. So for example, if you wanted to, you could have one Acme corporate location here that gets the bill, and 10 or 20 different Acme satellite locations that you possibly ship to. Moving down, you can put in an invoice number, customer PO numbers, other information like that. Again, a lot of this is optional and doesn't need to be filled out, but it is there if you'd like to utilize it. And there are additional fields in the database that we can turn on as well if need be.
I have a question on the order type. You were showing dropship orders. We actually do fill dropships for other dealers, our dealers. We act more as a distributor for the US and Canada, but we do take orders from some of our online vendors, online dealers, excuse me. But this dropship that you have here, from what you said, sounds like it reflects more if we were having somebody else do that for us. Is that the case?
Yes, that's the design. So essentially, if you had one of your vendors that sold you equipment shipping something directly to the customer, that's primarily what it's designed for in our system. It sounds like you'll just be processing standard orders for the most part.
Okay, so we might want to remove that reference because that might confuse people working on it. That the dropship there.
That's always doable. As I said earlier, we can always go into customize, and for example, the order type field, we can easily toggle that order when we set up your system, and now it's out of the way and you can't mess with it. So that's an option, or additionally, if you wanted to leave the quote option there, we can always remove that from the list as well. And again, this works similarly to the other editing screens where you can add a new one from here or copy this to a new one as well. So if you had a recurring order that was very common, you could always search for it and just copy it. And the line items page is, again, very similar to some of the other screens in the system. So you just select the item and specify the number they're ordering. And once you click Save, the system will automatically pull up the unit price if you have one set. If not, it'll leave it blank, and you'll have to fill that out before you can process the issue. You can also set it to 0 if you'd like. The system doesn't require it to have a value. So we do have some clients that just have notes or description line items that they'll put on here just to give themselves extra space on the the order slips or things like that to put in more information in. You can also load from a bill of materials. So if you have a very common order, you could make an assembly for it and just load that directly up into the shipping screen. And this looks fine. So at this point, actually I should hit save first just to make sure. And so at this point, we can start the issue process. And basically, once the order is ready to be sent out, you can issue it from the system. And it works very similarly to the issue stock transaction we did earlier. But now you'll notice we have the shipping order reference here, and it's automatically selected the shipping order reason code for us. And it will associate this transaction back to the shipping order so that the stock value is associated, to the proper reference. And here again, we can change where we're taking the stock from. So I can use the load all utility, in case it was in any other location. It's not, but it is an option. And now we can just click Finish Issue, and that will complete the order. So at this point, we can go back on the order, and we can print invoices or look at different things. Oh, the order's completed. So look here at this one. So here you can go back and print an invoice and send this out. Similarly, you can look at different picking lists or packing slips if you need to send those along. And these can be customized. You can upload your logo to the system and have that printed on the top of the form. And yeah, you can also link in images. So if you need to track any additional details with the order, you can add an image of the pallet or the box if you're having issues with damage during shipment or things like that. Yeah, and that's a quick overview. I'm not sure of any other areas we might need to look at. Did you have any questions?
Well, just a few maybe, but one of the things is how does this interface with the Sage 50 product?
Essentially, we have an interface that we will install on some sort of server computer on site. Essentially, what the interface does is it will constantly monitor our application for changes and then copy those applications over to the Sage system. So, for example, as we process orders and move them through the status from open to possibly packed or completed, it will push those transactions over to Sage. And once the order is completed, it will mark it as completed, and then you can go into Sage and mark it as paid or anything of that nature. As far as the inventory items, essentially what we plan for is any new item IDs, any new customers or suppliers or vendors. We expect those to be created in our system, and then we just copy all of that information directly over to Sage, and we just keep a running kind of tally and make sure that both the lists match essentially. So, for example, if I were to add a new item, it would automatically get copied over within a couple minutes to the Sage application.
Okay, so so even a new customer would be created in your system, and that would link in. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, pretty much anything like that as far as creating a customer, creating an item, creating a vendor. That would all occur in our system, and then we just copy that information over to the Sage system in order to keep the list synchronized. It becomes, it is something we've looked at in terms of copying things back and forth, but it gets very complicated when you try to do that between the two systems. because then you wind up with, you know, three different you know, Gilboys, for example, one with a space at the end, one with a lowercase g, things like that. So we prefer to do a one-way copy there, just to avoid the duplication problems you run into.
Okay.
And similarly for orders, you know, orders are copied down as they're created, and then they're just walked through the stages. So as you receive the order or as you issue the order out of the system, we'll post those transactions over to Sage so that the accounting numbers are updated appropriately. And once it's fully complete, we mark it as complete, and then the final process of marking the invoice as paid or things of that nature occur in the Sage product.
Okay.
I do apologize. I didn't know this was a Sage demo, or else I would have set that up and had that ready
Yeah,
to go.
that's that's one of the main reasons I thought we were doing it, because we are looking at upgrading that to that. And what we were looking for were add-ons to help us with barcoding, and you know, something that would work with the inventory management, or just the inventory that's already in the Sage system, but would help us track the shipping in and out as well. Now, I have a couple questions related to the shipping. Do you have any means of linking out to a FedEx ground system?
We do have the capability to specify packages and tracking numbers and things like that and linking them in. I know at one point in the past we've had an interface with FedEx in order to, I think it was like FedEx World Ship at the time, in order to copy the numbers across. I don't know, personally I don't work on those products, so I don't have a lot of information on them, but
Okay.
we do some linkage and some integration with services like that. I don't know specifically about FedEx, but you know, it is a possibility if we need to do some integration to program something out in order to copy the information across or post back.
Okay, so maybe not out of the box, but something that could be customized to link into that. Okay, and just with the order section where the orders would be entered directly into your system, just to give you a little bit of info, we take orders by phone from our dealers. We try to get them to send them by email and confirm them. I've also considered hopefully getting something set up where we could take things online from them. We also have a WooCommerce-based shopping cart on our website, and just wonder, do you have anything that would interface with that to draw down the orders directly to fill in the information?
We do have a WooCommerce interface that we're working on at the moment. I don't know the status of it, but I know we do have a WooCommerce interface. Oh, okay.
It works. We have a customer, Dovetail Bat, that has a WordPress site, and they use WooCommerce. There's a plugin we purchased called Store Exporter, and you can basically what it does is it spits out an XLS file, and then I created a Windows service that runs in the background, creates orders based upon what comes down from the XLS file. So yeah, we do have a WooCommerce interface.
Okay, so essentially we just download a flat file every day with the with the different transactions. Okay.
Okay, how often is that downloaded, just out of curiosity? Like once a day?
It's on a schedule. So for them, we just do it once a day. But you can do it as much as every hour.
Okay.
And
all right, so that would be downloaded. So that would be downloaded into the CISS system, and then would we still receive like the notices? Right now,
it doesn't interrupt anything from WooCommerce. It just creates orders in our system.
Okay, so that pre-fills everything that we would need. That would be great.
Yep.
Now, is that part of the system?
Those orders would also then copy down into Sage the next time the Sage interface ran, and that runs about. We normally do between about every, once a minute to once every 5 minutes, depending on the customer, as far as the copy information to Sage. Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then is that part of the a regular system, standard system, or is that like an add-on?
That's an add-on.
Okay.
And additionally, one other thing I wanted to mention was we do have the capability to create orders through our Inventory Pro Online interface here. So one thing I forgot to mention earlier was the system users. So you could come into this system here and create, a new group, for your different satellite locations, and create different users for them to log into the system and create orders. You can limit their permissions so that all they can do is create orders. All they have access to is the ordering screen. So, in here we would just go to shipping orders and pretty much turn off everything except for the quick order screen over here. And using the quick order screen, what it allows you to do is select the warehouse and select the customer. That would be automatically filled out for these particular users. And they can essentially pick from that warehouse what they'd like to order. And they can search through this list and pick different items they'd like. So it's basically a quick way to generate an order in our system. So here I'll just put in different numbers here, 50 of those, 40 of those, and we'll click Save. And now it'll take us to a review page, and we can now just click Place the Order. And this will generate a new order in the system. And if we jump over to the shipping orders page, you'll see here we have the new 008 shipping order number in there to the Acme, Montana location I selected. So that's a quick way if you needed your satellite locations to kind of avoid, the whole phone, and keeping people tied up on the phone all day situation. So.
Okay, and then that kind of is making me think about it. Once in a while, we do get something that's returned, or we have like a 30-day return policy for the website, and most of the time things come back in pretty good shape, but we might not want to resell certain ones as new if they've been opened or taken out or something along those lines. How do you have a category area for returns? And I know you mentioned you could link photos to that. Could you show me some of that?
Sure. So pretty much any record in the system we can link a picture into. So that might be something we can have set up there. But if I come back to the shipping order header here, we do allow the canceling of shipping orders. So we can cancel the shipping order and return the stock if it was a complete return of every item on here. If it's not a complete return, probably the best way to bring it back in is to just do a receive stock, and we can create a different reason code called shipment return or something of that nature. And we can bring the stock back into the system. And at this point, we could probably customize this screen to add in an image button here where you can link an image back into that record so you can see specifically what the condition is or anything like that. I do know we've done a used, in different condition statuses for clients in the past. That might be something we can pull down into your system and set up. That way you can track new products and used products separately.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we don't get a lot of that, but once in a while you do. And I didn't know, how we could categorize it. I know some systems I've looked at, they say, well, treat it almost as a separate warehouse for returns or something like that. But we really only have one warehouse.
Yeah, there's a few ways you can do it in our system as well. I mean, we also have support for what's called a damaged goods location. And sorry for cutting you off, but here we can mark this as a hold location. So any stock that gets moved into here, you can't actually consume that stock. You can't put it on an order or things like that. So that's one option, as well as to bring it back in and receive that stock into a damaged goods location. So it can't be utilized for normal orders.
Oh, okay. That actually might be good too. If that was the case, okay.
So there's a few ways you could do it, in terms of either, we can turn on the condition statuses for you, or we could, utilize the hold locations, things like that. So different clients do it in different manners. So it's one of those things. You'll have to figure out what process flow you'd like to go with. And one last thing that I'm normally, I normally mention in the demos here. We also support import and export of a few different things in the system. So, for example, if you got shipment information or things like that, you can import directly into the receiving screen. So using the direct receipt import here, you can import directly into the direct issue screen. So if you're getting Excel files with some information, as far as like what transactions need to occur, you can import that directly into the system. Additionally, up here at the top, we have a full inventory import and export. So from here, you can export the master catalog. And this will just download an Excel file, which that always opens on the wrong monitor for some reason. Yes. So here, this is just a flat file that has the warehouses, the item numbers, the descriptions, and all the different attributes that you'll see in our system. So you can export this from the system, make any changes you need to make, and re-import it. It's also very useful when you first set up the system as well. You can bring in stocking levels, all your unit costs, things like that. And a lot of this information can probably be brought over from Peachtree and Sage as well.
Okay.
That's about it for the normal stuff we go through. Anything else you guys were looking at in terms of requirements or special functionality or anything like that?
Okay. Well, so just so I understand, if you don't currently think you have anything that links out for a shipping product, but there might be something you could do that would interface with that.
With the tracking numbers and such.
Yeah, we had a FedEx interface with the Navy at one point. I don't think they use it anymore. I think they switched carriers. But basically,
Okay.
they would put in the order number, and I can't remember exactly how it worked. It was all based on web services. We also had a WorldShip interface for our Windows client. So, we've got experience and we got code libraries that we can probably refer to and get you up and running in fairly short order. But yeah, we've done them.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. So I guess one of my only other questions is, if you had realized this was a Sage 50 demo, what would you have done differently? Just so I have a better idea.
Well, I would have actually opened up Sage before the meeting. My computer's a little slow to open that up, and aside from that, I just need to turn on. We have a separate site we normally use for those demos, and I just need to update it to the latest version of the software. It's a couple releases out of date. It's not a big deal, but essentially the Sage interface, it's a pretty simple application. It's just a single window. You just have to have Sage running on the same machine, and you log into Sage, then you open the interface, and you just let it run pretty much.
It's not very exciting to watch.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a pretty simple application. At least from what you can see, it just tells you, 5 transactions posted, 20 transactions posted, simple information like that. It also, if there's any error codes or anything like that, it will also log those to the database. But generally, those are few and far between, and normally the next time it runs through, it'll get it. The only thing you might run into is if somebody's editing, something in Sage at the exact same time.
Oh, okay.
Let them finish first instead of trying to overwrite whatever they're doing.
All right, so we sort of have to do Sage first and open it up first, and then open up CIS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so normally we install that on a server-type computer, somewhere on your network. And generally, once you start that, you just let it sit and run. Unless there's a power outage, pretty much no other interaction with it.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. Okay. All right. Yeah, I can understand it's not, certainly not something front-facing that is going to impact, significantly what we see or do. It's obviously.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. All it does is pretty much copy the data. So not very exciting to look at.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that pretty much answers any of the questions I had. You know, getting to see how it works is probably the best thing for me, at least. Gives me a visual. So, and I don't, you know, we don't really have, you know, a lot of small pieces or anything like that for inventory. So I think that, you know, it simplifies things in some ways. But I appreciate the fact that we can eliminate categories that we don't really want to see or need to see. So I like that part of it. But, so that's about all I can think of at the moment.
Okay. Okay. Well, next steps from here. I mean, we can set up a demo site for you if you'd like to play around with, just to learn the system and maybe import some of your data and you know, just practice and look at how it works. Additionally, if you'd like to, we can also schedule another demo for the Sage system.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can think about that. And just, you know, I had some pricing questions and stuff, but is that something I should probably talk to Ben about, or?
Yeah, because I'll pretty much just be reading off the pricing sheet. So Ben can give you a little bit more insight on that information. And as far as, you know, things like barcodes and label printers and stuff like that, he's more up to date on that.
Yeah. Now, I noticed on your website you do have some recommendations for those, or just, well, not really recommendations, but just show the different types. So basically, your system is pretty flexible with what it can use for both printers and scanners.
Yes, pretty much any scanner, as long as it sends a new line code, which pretty much all of them do, will work with the system. And you know, similarly, our mobile application works with you know, pretty much any modern smartphone made in the last, you know, 3-4 years. So, or even, you know, the specialized Android scanners as well. But yeah, pretty much as long as it connects to the computer and the computer can see it, normally it works just fine with the system.
Okay.
And that was one thing I forgot to show. I'll just show it to you quickly, is the mobile application here. And to get to that, all you do is type mobile after the name. And essentially, this can be opened up on your you know, on your phone or any other device in a very similar manner. And you log in the same way. Just select the warehouse, and from here you can process basic transactions. We have a scanner issue system where you can, you know, scan stock directly out of the system. We also have a cycle count system. You know, if you need to do location counts, you know, do, you know, stock valuations, things like that, it's very useful. Make sure the counts are accurate. It's a blind count, so essentially you tell the system what you found, and then, you know, in the full IPOL application, you can review that. You can also process orders, mark them as shipped through here, and send them out. And yeah, it's just a pretty straightforward, not a ton of stuff going on in here. It's just a basic way to, you know, process the normal stock transactions associated with the inventory system.
Okay, so something like that is something that our warehouse folks could use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas the other is more of a back office. Is that the case?
Yes, that's generally how it works. You know, for most of our clients, is as far as the warehouse, when you're moving things between locations, when you're doing the general stock operations, it'll normally go through the mobile interface. Most of the back office people will be running through the you know, the full web interface there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, because you know, we'd rather have it pretty simple for just the shipment piece of it. You know, the picking and the sending.
That's the idea with this part of the system is, you know, as few fields as you need, is, you know, minimalistic. You know, you don't need all the crazy functionality that the full system has, at least in this particular area.
Okay.
And you can build transactions and process transactions through here as well. So it's got a lot of different functionality. It's very similar to a lot of the functionality in the main system, just organized a little differently to work better on the smartphones or the tablets. You can even use it on a full computer like I'm doing now. Yeah.
Okay. And it works the same way. It filters it right back through our, does it go back through our server?
Yes, it goes back through the same, both of these systems point at the same database. They're just different interfaces to the database. So the mobile application is also designed somewhat, I mean, it's not 100%, but if you lose cell reception in the middle of doing something, you're not immediately, you don't immediately have a problem. It can kind of work offline for a bit, do some other transactions like that. Basically what it'll do is it'll queue up the transactions until you get back in range. Things like that can be useful if you have spotty, wireless coverage in the warehouse, or, maybe you're off-site or maybe outside trying to process something. And,
yeah, I mean, that does happen. If a container comes in, it would
those
need
containers.
Wi-Fi access.
Yeah, those are no fun for Wi-Fi access. We have some first-hand experience with some clients who deal with those. So, yeah, it basically just will queue up the transactions until you get back within range. And one of the big things about the mobile application here is it actually keeps a local cache of what it thinks is in inventory. So you can work offline for a bit based on what was there last time you talked to the server, and essentially that gets refreshed regularly. But it allows you to work offline for, I'd say maybe 15 to 20 minutes at a time. Any more than that, you're kind of pushing it. But it is able to do that, and it is able to handle that. And worst case, I mean, if there is ever an error when you're working offline, and it'll just tell you, hey, you need to reprocess this transaction. Maybe there's not enough stock left, or maybe you've been out of range too long, or something like that. So. Okay.
And say we're doing the shipping. If they do a scan of the either packing slip or the label, and then scan the box, is there something that will trigger an alarm, for instance, or some kind of a notification if it's not a match?
At the moment, that's a feature we'd like to put into the system at some point, like a mobile pick list where you scan the items onto the order. For now, we don't have that full capability, but we do have the full list of what items are supposed to appear, and from here you can check these off and mark these for shipment, and then process the order. So we'll give you a full line item by line item list of what's supposed to be on the order. Additionally, if there are serialized parts, it will show them as well. But yeah, we don't have the full pick list capability. It is something we'd like to add. You can scan through here in the scanner issue system, and it will look for serial numbers and consume the stock. But it doesn't necessarily associate that directly to the shipping order.
Okay. Okay, that's good. All right, that helps clarify what would be seen out at our warehouse. Like you said, I like the simplified version of it for that site. So I think that was all I had. And so, I guess if I needed to see anything more, we could do a demo, like you said, to test it, or even just to see this H50 piece. And in the meantime, I'll touch base with Ben, or he'll get in touch with me, I assume, when he gets back into the office.
Yeah, I'll send him a message after the meeting here.
Okay, that works out. And I think that's it. If I have more questions, I can probably filter them through him. If I go back to my upline folks and they have any questions, we can get back in touch with him and he'll put us in touch with you.
Yeah, you can send things to him. We also have a support email address as well. If you have any questions, you can send them to that address. And for that email address, all of us get that. I know Ben's traveling quite a bit this week, so he might not be 100% available. So I'll tell him to link you to that address so you can send any questions over there if you need to.
That will go directly to you?
That goes out to everybody, at the office. So.
Oh, okay.
It's generally just, somebody needs some help. Here's what it is. So generally
That's
from there we
good.
can answer any basic questions if you're having problems using the system or if you need to know anything.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
help you out.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, thank you very much for going over that with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hopefully, you guys can all have a good evening and afternoon.
Okay, well, I'll get the meeting closed down and I'll have him send you over that information, and I think we'll take it from there.
All right, great. Thanks so much for your help.
Thank
Have
you.
a great
Bye-bye.
time. Bye-bye.